Hi, my name is Megg Farrell.
And I'm Ricky Alexander.
And welcome to On the Back Porch, Season 3.
This week, I'm really excited because as a saxophone player, we have one of my heroes, Harry Allen, who's recorded with the Pizzarelli brothers, Ray Brown, Tommy Flanagan, to name a few. Let's go talk to him.
All right. Well, hi, Harry. Welcome. I'm really glad you're here.
Thank you.
So you started jazz in high school, you said? Or when was the first jazz?
I actually started playing music with odd circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
There was a knock at the door, and a guy was selling accordion lessons.
When was this? How old
When I
were
was
you?
about 7. And
That's so specific.
they didn't want me. They wanted my sister. I was too young. I remember that clearly. They did a little demonstration with my sister. And then they called me up and did the demonstration. And I just took it and played it because I was paying so close attention. I was fascinated by music. So my father said, well, you can't have my sister unless you take me too. So they took me younger than they wanted to. So that's when I started playing.
So your first was accordion. Your first instrument was accordion.
It was actually a really great instrument to learn music on.
When did you move from accordion to saxophone?
Well, I played accordion right through high school. I went into the accordion competitions and all sorts of stuff.
Do you still play it at all?
No, I play a lot of piano. I play piano around my house probably as much as I play saxophone.
Yeah. What were your favorite, did you have big influences, like people that really influenced you for saxophone specifically?
Well, probably the first one, which was before I was even aware, is my father went to high school with Paul Gonsalves.
Wow.
And my father was a drummer, and they played together, and they were lifelong friends. So my father, he went into engineering long before I was born. But he loved music, and so he played a lot of records. So when I was a little kid, he played a lot of records of Duke Ellington and a lot featuring Paul Gonsalves. And that's probably where I, in the back of my head, went, wow, that's a beautiful saxophone.
So you've gotten to record with Scott Hamilton and many of your heroes, and you had an opportunity through your Japanese record label to basically do whatever you want.
Yes, I had, and I'll tell you a funny story of how it all happened. So I met John Pizzarelli when I was just a freshman at college. He was playing at a club down the street, and we became friends, and I worked with him a lot through the years. This was long before he was famous. He was playing weddings and stuff like that. And we went into the studio. He said, let's go to the studio. We didn't pay anything. We just went in the studio and made a record. And he had recently just signed with RCA. So we did this record. And I said, what was that all about? He said, well, this is the record I want to do next for BMG Japan, which is an affiliate of RCA. He sent that record to the guy in Japan. His name was Ikiyoshi Hirakawa. He was a wonderful producer, best producer I've ever worked with. And he said, yes, let's do that record, but I want to be there for it. So he managed to go into the studio and do it all again. So a little while later, John Pizzarelli said, let's go back to the studio. And okay, we recorded, but John didn't sing, and he hardly took any solos. It was basically all me. And afterwards, I said, well, what was that all about? And he said, well, I want them to record you next. And so John, with his own money, paid for us to go into the studio and make a demo that he sent to his contact in Japan and said, this is who you need to record next. And the guy said, yes, let's do that. But I want to be there. So we go back to the studio and redo everything. It turned out a 15-year relationship with BMG Japan, and they would do 2 records a year. So, and they had a lot of money. So they'd say, who do you want to record with? I said, Hank Jones? Great. Tommy Flanagan? Yeah, great. Bill Scarlett? Great.
Ray Brown? Yeah.
Wow.
Let's do that. How about a straight record? Yes, let's do that.
Wow, that's amazing.
An amazing situation. Monty Alexander, Herb Ellis. I got to record with all of my heroes.
that you get from worry. There are blues that you get from pain. There are blues when you're lonely for your one and only. There are blues that make you go insane. Oh, there are blues that you get from longing. But the bluest blues to me are the only blues that's on my mind. They're the meanest, meanest, meanest kind. That blues but not as sweet it gives to me. Must abstain. Ah, there are blues when you have those sleepless nights. But the blues to me. Ah, the kind of blues make you hot, make you shake and shiver, make you wanna end up going jumping in the river. Blues but not as sweet it gives to me.
You have a very unique sound. I hear people announcing you, and they say, "This is the guy with the sound." You know, it's unlike any other saxophone player that I can tell. And there are several things about your posture and your instrument and your mouthpiece that you've chosen to get this. So tell me about your process creating this sound.
Well, the first thing is that you have to have it in your head what you want to sound like, as you know. And so I had an idea of what I wanted to sound like, and then it's just a matter of finding the equipment that does it the easiest for you. And when I started, I was playing on a wolf tape mouthpiece, which was meant to take the paint off the walls of the, but that's not how I wanted to sound. So I did whatever I had to do to make it sound like that. And then I narrowed down to the equipment I wanted. So I play on a mouthpiece from the 1930s, and I play on a horn from the 1930s. They just more easily get that sound. And yeah, I've thought a lot about posture and airflow and all sorts of things like that, and just the physics of playing the saxophone. We all know that any sound is made through vibrations. Your vocal cords, the piano, strings, the guitar, whatever. So obviously it's the reed that vibrates. So the more you clamp down on the reed, the less sound you're going to get. So I have basically a no pressure embouchure. Now your eyes can really roll back in that.
I did a saxophone play for 7 years, I believe.
So I don't use any teeth on the top. I hardly use any pressure on the bottom at all. So to let the reed vibrate the most it can.
Yeah, it's totally unique. Kind of, it seems like I can't think of anybody else that plays that way.
Well, I think maybe nowadays, but when you look at videos of Ben Webster or Coleman Hawkins or Zoot Sims or Al Kuhn, they had very loose embouchures.
Mm-hmm.
So it was more common back then.
It's cool. Yeah. Like I said, I don't. I mean, actually, my ex bought your saxophone, so I know all about the mouthpieces of how great embouchures. So I'm actually interested. I am more interested than you realize. Heck, wrong.
Nice.
You got more? I'm sure you got more.
All right. Well, we don't have to go too far. I definitely wanted to talk about. I was watching this movie somewhat recently. This rom-com from the 90s. A couple visiting New York, and we get to the scene in the low boathouse. And there you are. You're playing right in the middle of the movie. You've done a bunch of these movie.
Wait, what movie is this?
What was that called?
The Out of Towners.
Yeah.
It's one of the worst movies ever. The original Out of Towners was a brilliant movie with Sandy Dennis and Jack Lemmon, and Steve Martin and Goldie Hawn did a remake of it, and I was very happy and lucky to be involved. And I have to say that the scene I'm in is the funniest scene in the movie, I think. Not because of me.
You've done several stand-in jobs, and there was one in particular.
Yes, absolutely. I was doing what they call sidelining, where you're not actually playing on the movie. We were on a soundtrack also, but I was there sidelining, just pretending to play. It was a big band, and they had a saxophone solo that was so bad that I didn't want to be seen standing up taking the solo. So I convinced the other tenor player to take the solo for me. So he stands up and he's taking the solo and all that. I'm happy. But then a week later, I get a call from the producer saying, "This saxophone solo is terrible. Can you come in and overdub it?" So the other guy's taking my solo.
I guess you could say that guy never sounded so
Yeah,
good.
I outsmarted myself.
Thank you.